Hello, good evening, morning, afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, Tai Ji Men, 25 Years of Discrimination, which we are celebrating on the United Nations Zero Discrimination Day, 1st of March. I'm Alessandro Micarelli, live from London. It's raining today. It's very cold, but we are here dealing with this matter involving the Tai Ji Men case, all together fighting for justice for Tai Ji Men in Taiwan and worldwide, improving the level of democracy and fighting against discrimination against minority groups. The Zero Discrimination Day is an annual day celebrated by the United Nations on the 1st of March to celebrate and promote equality before the law and in practice throughout all member states of the United Nations and beyond. Today is also a very important day for Taiwan, and it's very important that it's celebrated on the 1st of March. In fact, 28th of February, so yesterday, but all the period around 28th of February is a very important date for Taiwan, as Taiwan remembers the 228 incident. Basically, it's 228 incident is the name given in Taiwan to a series of events that happened around 28th February 1947. When thousands, probably tens of thousands of people died when popular protests were repressed by the Taiwanese government. Of course, we see it as a positive fact that Taiwan has decided to remember the 228 incident, and it is good that Taiwan is not hiding this dark page of its, I would say, turbulent past. And has decided to reflect on it every single year. It's an important event and equally important opportunity for everyone to meditate. The lesson to learn for us and for everyone while we commemorate this bloody 228 incident is that the journey to democracy is not an easy one. Democracy is not just a medal or label or a pin to show, obtained once and for all. Democracy is a process. It's something we struggle for every single day, also in the Western democracies. Every country in the world where non-democratic practices and rogue bureaucrats continue to surface and operate is even more true that democracy is a struggle to obtain. This is why the resolution of the Tai Ji Men case will be an important test for democracy in Taiwan, and we do hope that the memory of the past may permit Taiwan to move on to a more bright and fairer democratic future. That's why we all are working together, trying to help Tai Ji Men to obtain justice after over 25 years of discrimination and unfair treatment by the Taiwanese bureaucrats. We must recall, even though Tai Ji Men won all cases in the courts of law. This is very important to stress every time we talk about the Tai Ji Men case. I'm not going to introduce the Tai Ji Men case as other members of the panel today will talk about it. We will, in the second part of the webinar, there will be witnesses with their testimonies talking about their experiences in Taiwan, and a lot of information is now available on the internet. There have been previous seminars, webinars, and very abundant literature on this case, including a recent article on the 228 incident, which you can find on Bitter Winter. Without further ado, I will now introduce a video on the coldest winter for Tai Ji Men, shifu, and dizi. And after the video, we will start with the members of the panels with their speeches. Please.
Injustice! To me, the sky was gray in 1996.
I saw policemen at the door. They were fully armed.
The next day, I started to hear other brothers and sisters' houses being searched by police.
To me, it has been a nightmare for years.
Shifu turned his head and looked at me. Our eyes met, and I burst into tears.
He claimed that we are an evil group. I feel I'm here to confront an evil government agency.
Taipei District Prosecutor's Office issued 7 search warrants today in Taipei.
On December 19, 1996, based on a letter with a false accusation of fraud, Ho Kuanzhen, a prosecutor of Taipei District, led hundreds of armed police officers to search the 12 chapters of the Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy, as well as some Tai Ji Men Dizi's houses, a large-scale search.
We are not criminals. Why was it necessary to have armed policemen with guns loaded rushing into the Tai Ji Men Academy?
The policeman came in without speaking or showing any credentials, then immediately ransacked my house.
I just put down my bag at the academy when the policeman said he had to search my bag.
My house was also searched on the 24th. On the same day after the search, I was taken into custody. And I was detained for 4 months. I was detained and held incommunicado. All the questions were designed to frame Tai Ji Men Shifu. You needed to give the answers they wanted. If you don't obey, they torture you with emotional abuse. Then the prosecutor asked, "Is your Shifu's wrongful real?" I replied, "Yes." Then he was doing like this, pounding the table hard, loudly, and angrily. He said, "You have no compassion. What are you practicing? What are you cultivating? You have absolutely no compassion. Your family is going to be, your wife is going to be in prison, and you don't even want to rescue her."
Another Tai Ji Men dizi, Peng Lijian, who had a 7-month-old baby, was named by the prosecutor Ho as confidential secretary, a non-existing title in Tai Ji Men. Her house was also searched when she was taken away, so her family was not even notified.
He knew I had a little one. He had also said, "I checked your background, I know you're innocent." And yet, he still took me to the conference room and wrote a false statement. I told him, "No, that is not what I said."
He didn't have the authority to ask me to go with him. At the time, we didn't know we had the right to reject him, but I did ask him, "Do I have to go with you?" He replied, "If you don't go, I will arrest more of your fellow brothers and sisters." That made me feel that I would better go.
I didn't commit crimes. Why are you taking me to the investigation station? He said, "You practiced long enough. If you don't come, I will just take a few more brothers and sisters downstairs later."
I will never forget the phone call with my mom at the moment. She said she doesn't know what time she will return home.
My dad and mom called us 3 over to their room. They took out their bank book and some documents and told us where to get money for daily expenses. Then they told us they already found a lawyer, telling us to not worry.
Because Shifu and Shirmu are not home, we need to be very brave. We go to the academy every day. At that time, we didn't dare to wear the uniform. We would bring it instead of wearing it.
Prosecutor Quanran Ho spread fake news in the media every day. It's terrible. I was scared to speak over the phone, whether it's fixed line in the house or company lines. I don't know if I am being taped.
I also prepared a bag in my home, ready at any time, in case anything happens. In case I get taken.
It was Christmas Day, December 24th, when I walked out of the door of the Investigation Bureau. I felt really lost. On Christmas Day, my family didn't know where I went, and I didn't know if I would come back. It's Christmas. But that Christmas is really a black Christmas. We must maintain this home, make it bright. No one can turn off the lights of our home.
Okay, we are back. For those who have no idea about the Tai Ji Men case and first approach this topic today, we'll now start having an idea after watching this moving video presentation introducing the discrimination and the persecution of which members of Tai Ji Men were victims in Taipei and Taiwan, generally speaking. We now move to the panel with experts in different fields. The first speaker is Carolina Maria Hess. Carolina is an assistant professor in the Center for Comparative Studies of Civilizations at Jagiellonian University. She has a PhD in philosophy and she's working on her PhD in sociology. Carolina specializes in new religious movements and Western esotericism in Central and Eastern Europe. Carolina is presenting on the Tai Ji Men case and how discrimination escalated. Please, Carolina, the floor is yours.
Hello, Alex. Hello, everyone. I'm very pleased to be able to join this meeting today. And I must say that today's meeting on Zero Discrimination Day is extremely important for me. From the time we planned this meeting to the moment it happened, I woke up in a different world, in a world where thousands of innocent people are dying abroad. And I know terrible wars are happening around the world all the time, but not always do they affect everyone and rarely affect equally. And this time the zone of the fire has reached Eastern Europe, as the Russian aggression against Ukraine has caused a huge humanitarian crisis, and in every war, refugees are looking for refuge in neighboring countries. This week in my family home, I am currently making the final arrangements to accommodate mothers with children fleeing Ukraine and coming to Poland, dozens of whom are reaching my city already. And the reaction of the public was very quick and edifying. Help is being provided from everywhere. This is a great thing, but there is, however, an element of bitterness in all of this. And the bitterness has to do with religious inequality and tolerance. Because at another border, Belarusian one, not much further north, refugees from the war in Afghanistan have had problems of crossing the borders for months. And unfortunately, all of them, despite their personal histories, have become an element of calculated political game. And even one-year-old children are dying of cold in Polish forests. And this is tragedy for all of us. So for those who can help, the response to refugees of other religions, especially Islam, is often negative due to media campaigns. And the whole situation further illustrates what escalation can be created by malicious words of inequality, also in religious contexts. So tired of all of this difficult religious image of Europe, still marked by religious scuffles, with optimism as a researcher, but also as a human being, I looked at Taiwan. When I got there for the first time, it was a part of the Chesnor Academic Conference about new religious movements around the world. It was an upbuilding and refreshing experience, and my great interest was the fact of religious plurality, high tolerance, and popularity of smaller groups, something unimaginable in a country like mine, where the media is creating a false myth of religious monolith, like it was only one religion in Poland, which is of course absurd. But in Poland, new religious movements do not have much recognition, that's for sure. And in Taiwan, I found that seemed a completely different situation, and it was an uplifting experience by all means. Visibility in social media, some new religions running their own universities, all these were clear signs for me of acceptance and tolerance. A good example is also the visibility of the Tai Ji Men group, which, for example, has its own television program and organized performances in leading sport events in Taiwan and even at the Sydney Olympics in 2000. But interestingly, these were artistic performances with high aesthetic value, but also with an inner message and even a conviction of what we can call their healing power. The cultural differences with my own country in the reception of such groups related to spirituality, their visibility, popularity, and wide acceptance in Taiwan, all this interested me very much at the time. However, when I decided to delve into this topic a bit more, it turned out that In Taiwan, not all problems of human rights has been resolved, including the rights of freedom of conscience and to freely practice a religion or spirituality, which is an important foundation of modern societies. How surprised I was when it turned out that it was Tai Ji Men, which was organizing mass protests because it was struggling with problems of discrimination. I couldn't believe it. My first thought was they were discriminated on the basis of belief, yet in light of what I said above, it did not seem to make much sense. It was, I must admit, something incomprehensible to me, because in my experience rooted in East Central Europe, the problems of new religious movements are primarily ideological and have strong ties to politics and the dominant religion. New religions and various currents of spirituality are often marked in the media discourse as cults, and the word here is literally sect, but it plays the same derogatory role as in English cult. Any interest in them is treated as something suspicious, and religionists would see it in a threat of as a threat of eternal damnation of every last soul. So when I first came across Tai Ji Men Case, I did not recognize these dynamics I know from my Eastern European experience, but only their distant background, a kind of reverberation, we can say, which perhaps was not even the core of the matter. This background is a similarity between the meaning of the terms sekta in Polish or cult in English and the understanding of term ksiedział in Taiwan. I did not go into the details of the comparison of these two terms. For most scholars who deal with the spirituality in Taiwan, as well as those who are familiar with the Tai Ji Men Case, the connotations of the terms are known, and the structural similarities as well as differences between those Chinese and English words. On the other hand, it should be emphasized due to specific historical and cultural context, as Massimo Introvigne, Rosita Sorite, and even scholars from mainland China have argued, it would be more methodologically appropriate to just use the word ksiedział, translated from Chinese rather than translating into other languages. After all, we do not translate terms like qigong or feng shui. So the fact that there are structurally similarities or similar processes at work in these two terms should not lead to translating this as cult, which with all the resulting consequences, because important differences can be found between them too. As important as this question of terminology can be, I believe it only offers a background for the Tai Ji Men case, because in the end, Tai Ji Men was persecuted by using an accusation, very tangible and understandable but by anyone and everywhere, so tax evasion. Tai Ji Men was completely cleared of all charges, including tax evasion. The accusation itself and the trial that lasted 4 years, however, were in themselves an undeserved punishment. Every next day, Tai Ji Men was burdened with suspicions, accusations, and unfair harassment. Then, after the verdict of innocence, which should have dispelled all of the doubts, a whole machine of the obstacles unexpectedly continued to accumulate. Tax bills continued to be issued, and the land was confiscated. This is simply absurd. There can be many reasons for this. Among them, we can find historical aspects and remnants of Taiwan's authoritarian past in the functioning of the some institutions of the state apparatus. We can also, as Massimo Introvigne suggested in one of his articles, assume that the decision of the National Taxation Bureau were simply a desperate attempt to save face. But the problem is that the first of these explanations evokes a systematic error and a mechanism that has not been fixed. In the second, the effect is exactly the opposite of what was intended. Being stuck with the wrong decision does not save the face of those responsible, and again shows that the system needs fixing. A workable bureaucratic mechanism should be built on rational, not emotional foundations. There is no reason whatsoever to protect the emotions of bureaucrats, particularly when they affect thousands of Tai Ji Men disciples who suffer both materially and emotionally for so many years, let's add. Researchers in the field of humanities and social sciences were using concepts such as mechanism, know that they are not dealing with machines. Working with people is always dynamic, and we are to sow the ideas of equality across all divisions and be, let's say, midwives of social change, so that regardless of the cultural context, these ideas may come to light, be nurtured and grow. But there are, of course, various limitations on the possibilities of what we are able to do as researchers, as well as limitation to our tools. It is difficult, for example, to imagine that the position of social scientists may really indirectly influence, for example, the decisions of a tyrant. But there are aspects in which we can have a real impact on some changes, where the difficulties are solvable, when the goodwill and especially human factor are decisive. Perhaps such is the case of Tai Ji Men. I hope that on the next Zero Discrimination Day next year, we will gather again to celebrate how after more than 2 decades, we managed to contribute to the solution of this Tai Ji Men case. Absurd in its causes, but very harmful in its effects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carolina. Thank you, Massimo. Yes, I mean, what Carolina also said about the crisis with Ukraine is very absurd. Also, in terms of some information we as lawyers in London received from people that are trying to get into Poland, and if they are not Ukrainian citizens, they are not being allowed into the country. We work
exactly, and don't even mention the skin color, because what's happening here, it's really disturbing. I mean, students can reach Warsaw to get into their own countries.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we work with clients from Nigeria basically, and we receive calls from Nigerians living and working in Ukraine, trying to enter Poland and being sent back to Ukraine because they are not Ukrainian citizens. So they are now trying to come to the UK, having family in the UK, because the UK government is open to everyone, even in case they don't have family in the UK, they are being permitted to come.
So that's exactly what's happening. Things are not in shops because people are buying so many things for Ukrainians, but they then do not allow to stay any other people. I mean, yeah, this is
so discrimination is a big issue at all levels.
Exactly.
So that's why it's important, the work we are doing today. Thank you, Carolina. We can move on to, thank you. We can move to the next speaker, Pierluigi Zoccatelli. Pierluigi is Professor of Sociology of Religion at Pontifical Salesian University in Turin and Deputy Director of the CESNER, Center for Studies on New Religions in Turin as well. Please, Pierluigi, the floor is yours for your presentation on Tai Ji Men, discrimination and religions.
Thank you, Alex. I hope everybody can hear me. And I will start my brief speech as follows. Not to be discriminated is a human right. There are several different human rights, however, and there may be conflicts between them. It is possible that some of the NGOs that originally proposed the institution of the United Nations Zero Discrimination Day had a somewhat negative view of religion and saw it more often as a problem than as a resource. At first sight, there are discrimination promoted by religions. Feminists complain that women are discriminated in the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches, as well as in the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, popularly known as the Mormon Church. In all these churches, women are excluded from the priesthood. Less talked about is that there are some discrimination affecting men too. As a man, I cannot become a Catholic or Eastern Orthodox or Buddhist nun, although I can become a monk. This was not a problem until a few years ago, but today we no longer know. There are also what discrimination against those who are not members of a certain religion. In the United States, where there are many different religions, flyers in the Catholic churches tell non-Catholics that they are welcome to attend the Mass, but should not take communion. If you are not a Muslim, you cannot enter the most holy places of Islam in Saudi Arabia, and so on. And of course, today, some claim that churches that refuse to perform same-sex marriages are discriminating against homosexuals. In the United States, the Metropolitan Community Church, a Christian denomination created to cater to homosexuals, has been in turn accused of discriminating against those who are not homosexual. Perhaps the Zero Discrimination Day should have been named the Zero Unjust Discrimination Day, although I understand this would have somewhat diluted the effectiveness of the slogan. Courts of law, both domestic and international, such as the European Court of Human Rights, have established two key principles about the conflicts which exist and are unavoidable between the right to non-discrimination and the right to freedom of religion or belief, FORB. The first principle is that religion and spiritual communities have the right to self-organize as they deem fit. While in most circumstances, a commercial corporation cannot discriminate by excluding women or homosexuals or persons of a different religion than the owner from certain positions or services, a religious or spiritual organization within reasonable but broad limits can. This is part of its FORB. The freedom of certain members not to be discriminated is guaranteed by the fact that they can leave their religious organization and establish another one. Secular courts of law cannot compel the Catholic Church to have women priests, but the human rights of Catholic women are guaranteed by the fact that they are free to leave the Catholic Church and establish new denomination where women can be priests, and some indeed did. This principle comes under assault periodically, but courts have generally affirmed it. In a recent and very important decision, the Spanish Supreme Court decided that a Catholic lay organization may restrict its membership to men only. Women, the court said, remain free to establish rival organizations where this restriction would not apply. The second principle is that while religious and spiritual groups can include in their practices certain discriminations based on their freedom to self-organize that is an integral part of their FORB, the states, when dealing with religious organizations, cannot discriminate against some and promote others. It may seem a complicated mechanism, but it is the only one protecting FORB effectively. These principles are important to the Tai Ji Men case. The Tai Ji Men is free to self-organize itself as it deems fit. How, for example, gifts are given from disciples, dizi, to master, shifu, in the red envelopes is part of a spiritual practice and something that the authorities should not interfere with. They should not interfere in general on how Tai Ji Men organize the relationship between dizi and shifu either. Conversely, the government is not authorized to discriminate against Tai Ji men by treating its leader and members differently and with more hostility than it does with other religious or spiritual organizations. 1996, not all spiritual organizations in Taiwan were investigated and raided, only those accused of not having supported the presidential candidate of the ruling party. This was discrimination. In Taiwan, there are many organizations teaching martial arts, Qigong, and self-cultivation, where masters receive gifts in red envelopes. It is generally agreed that these gifts are not taxable. Only in the case of Tai Ji Men was the content of the red envelopes falsely declared a tuition fee and taxed. This was discrimination again, and the examples can continue. In conclusion, we should at the same time defend the rights of Tai Ji Men dizi to decide on their own organization without governmental interference, and their right not to be discriminated by the government and to see their human rights fully recognized, including in the tax field. These correspond to the real meaning of a zero, unjust, discrimination program. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your insights, Pierluigi. And we now move to the next speaker. The next speaker is Massimo Introvigne. Massimo is, we all know him, founder of Cessner, professor, editor-in-chief of Bitter Winter magazine, and many other things. Massimo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And speaking of discrimination reminds me of my experience of some 10 years ago when I took a sabbatical from my other activities and spent a year as the representative of the OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, for combating racism, xenophobia, and intolerance and discrimination against Christians and members of other religions. While this title meant I had a big business card, but the reason is the OSCE had two other representatives for combating anti-Semitism and for combating Islamophobia. So I was responsible in alia for protecting against discrimination the devotees of all religions, excluding Judaism and Islam. Now, for our Asian friends who may be less familiar with it, although it's playing a role in these days in the Ukrainian crisis, the OSCE is the largest international organization dealing with international security and human rights apart from United States. And its participating states include Canada, the United States, all countries in Europe and the former Soviet Union and Mongolia. On September 12, 2011, I organized in Rome a conference on intolerance and discrimination against Christians, which was attended by some 50 countries, diplomatic delegations, plus several religions, including at high levels the Catholic Church and the Russian Orthodox Church. The Vatican later published a declaration praising the event. At the Rome conference, it was introduced, and it was my proposal, the Rome model. The Rome model is a three-stage model showing the slippery slope from intolerance to discrimination and from discrimination to persecution. And after 2011, this Rome model has been often quoted not only by scholars, but also by international organizations. And of course, in Rome, we discussed Christians, but that's a universal model, can be applied to many different situations. So according to the Rome model, attack against religious minorities comes in three stages, which can be simultaneous or consecutive. Stage one is intolerance. Intolerance is a cultural attack. You publish slander in the media, in the arts, movies, cartoons, and you persuade the public opinion that one group is bad. After you have been reasonably successful with intolerance, you pass to discrimination. If the group is bad, the public opinion accepts that laws and regulations and administrative provisions are needed against it. And so you enact discriminatory provisions at the administrative or legal level. And then the third stage is persecution. Because you tell the public opinion that the group is bad, the group is dangerous, and the laws need not only be written, they need to be applied. So you start putting people in jail and using violence. And I called this the spiral of violence, or the spiral of intolerance, from intolerance to discrimination, and from discrimination to persecution. And already in the Rome conference 2011, I gave the classic example of the Jews in Nazi Germany. The Jews were first the target of intolerance. There were books, articles, cartoons depicting the Jews as sinister and dangerous, even very popular movies in Nazi Germany. And so the public opinion was prepared by intolerance to accept the stage two, discrimination. And discrimination was through the Nuremberg laws and other laws making the Jews second-class citizens. And then the public opinion was told, you see, the laws are not enough to get rid of the Jews, and so Auschwitz and the concentration camp came. When I was at the OSCE, a big part of my mandate, which was not only about religious intolerance, but was against racism and xenophobia as well, was discrimination against the Roma and the Sinti minority, the so-called gypsies. And in many countries, they are first subject to intolerance through stereotypes. They are bad people, they are all thieves. Then they are targeted by discriminatory laws. For instance, in some countries, they need sort of a special passport or may have problem in obtaining ID. And then at the third stage, they become victims of violence and persecution. Now, when I introduced the Rome model, 2011, I didn't know about Tai Ji Men, although the case was already going on from 15 years. So it was just my ignorance. I didn't know it. But it seems to me that the Rome model applies, unfortunately, very well to the Tai Ji Men case too. They are victims of all three evils: intolerance, persecution, and discrimination. They are victims of intolerance since prosecutor Hu conducting a slander campaign against Tai Ji Men. He created a false association of victims, which was later revealed to be a fraud, and he even accused Dr. Hong Tao-tse, the leader of Tai Ji Men, of raising goblins. Ridiculous accusation, which was of course false, but was believed by the media and by a part of the population, and creating more intolerance. So children of Tai Ji Men families, for instance, reported that they were bullied at school and accused of raising goblins. So that's stage one, intolerance. Simultaneously, there was stage two, discrimination. Prosecutor Hu, in 1997, overstepping his authority, wrote to the Ministry of Interior demanding the dissolution of Tai Ji Men, and even wrote to the public works departments of Taipei City and Taipei County, asking that water and electricity supply to Tai Ji Men be terminated. And these blatant attempts at discrimination were not successful, but another one connected with taxes was. We now know from the testimony of tax collector Xi Weisheng that he was summoned by prosecutor Ho and pressured to lie, pressured to commit perjury. He was told that he should falsely claim that he had investigating Tai Ji Men, which he did not, and had ascertained that it was a cram school, meaning a school providing students a rapid tuition, with the consequence that what was given in the red envelopes from dizi to shifu was a taxable tuition fee rather than a non-taxable gift. And this started all the Tai Ji Men case. So we have against Tai Ji Men, since the times of the first action by prosecutor Ho, 96 and 97, we have intolerance and we have discrimination. But we have also persecution, because Dr. Hong was not just slandered and taxed. Together with his wife and two D's, he was arrested and put in jail and kept in jail between 96 and 97 for 159 days in very bad conditions. Also, Tai Ji Men academies were raided, so were private homes of dizi, and they were intimidated, be they defenses or witnesses, by the prosecutor. Later, the tax case led to violence not on persons in general, although we should remember that one 60-year-old woman peacefully protesting, as we saw, was mistreated by the police, but against the sacred land of Tai Ji Men, which was seized, unsuccessfully auctioned and confiscated in 2020 based on an ill-founded tax bill, and this was persecution too. So, number one, intolerance; number two, discrimination; number three, persecution. Tai Ji Men experienced them all of three. Unfortunately, it's quick and easy to pass from intolerance and discrimination to persecution and violence. And this is what the Rome model is all about. As a ball rolling down on an inclined plane, which is slow in the beginning, but then speed up until it becomes unstoppable, intolerance and discrimination, if not halted, become persecution. And this is why we should stop discrimination against Tai Ji Men. Please stop discrimination against Tai Ji Men now, before it is too late. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Massimo, for your insights and remarks. prejudice, discrimination, and persecution have always been experienced by Tai Ji men. And in a previous seminar, we also spoke about the problem of corruption, which seems to be still something being experienced in Taiwan quite a lot. And that's another issue to deal with and hopefully solve at some point. Thank you again, Massimo. Next speaker is Marco Respinti. Marco is currently in another meeting, so we have a video presentation. Marco Respinti is an Italian professional journalist and a translator. Is a senior fellow of the Russell Kirk Center for Cultural Renewal and board member of the Center for European Renewal. His presentation is on discriminating discrimination to honor human rights and religious liberty. We have a pre-recorded video. Please, we can watch it together.
I am delighted to participate once more in these meetings of freedom and justice, this time through a video. As I have showed several times during this series of important webinars on the incomprehensible and momentous case of Tai Ji men, I do love words. Words are in fact the way by which human beings transmit ideas, thoughts and memories and pass them on to the rising generation. One of the most interesting aspects of words is that even if one can use them in whatever order he or she is able to, they have real meanings only when they convey sense. In fact, words always communicate truth, either an authentic or a fabricated truth, since lies are inverted truths that, at a pure logical level, have the same right to citizenship in a sentence than a real truth. Another interesting aspect of words is that we almost use them as received notion without wondering deeply on the sense they convey, while a closer look to their roots would make each of us a more conscious speaker. The word on which we focus today is discrimination, and its etymology teaches us important lessons. It is believed that the word discrimination entered the English language at the beginning of the 17th century, coming from a more ancient word, the late Latin noun discrimen, derived from the verb discernere. In its turn, this verb means to distinguish and to discern, or to recognize the diversity between two elements, and to see more clearly. Originally, both of these senses pertain also to the English word discrimination. So per se, the word discrimination doesn't have a negative sense. It means to understand better and penetrate deeper a subject, which is a highly positive human attitude, typical of the wise person, as well as it means paying justice to differences without confusing them. It is in fact profoundly just to treat different things in a different way, as well as the opposite is deeply unjust. Consider, for example, the Olympic Games on one hand and the Paralympic Games on the other, where of course different athletes need to be treated differently to achieve equity. But if roots are not properly and regularly watered, trees and plants do wither. In the same way, if etymologies of words are not continually interrogated by human beings, words used in human languages may lose their meaning and even upset it. One example always strikes me in a spectacular fashion: the English word awful. Today it means disgusting, ghastly, and dreadful, while its root is indeed awful, or full of awe, that is to say, hit with wonder. In such dispositive acceptation, the word awful has been used until contemporary English. Let's now return to the word discrimination this refined and noble term, which conveys the positive and even delicate meaning of scrutinizing closely and giving each his or her due, has slowly but steadily lost its sense, ending to mean the very opposite: penalize, marginalize, exclude, and segregate. In all modern languages, discrimination is something that civilized people don't want to do or see done by others. Societies stigmatize and governments outlaw. Modern democracies wish to distinguish themselves from tyrannical societies, old and new, by even showing off the equal treatment they reserve to all people, making no difference, underlying no difference whatsoever among people, and even tending to positively cancelling all differences. In brief, nowadays, the mark of an advanced society is to regard all people culturally and legally as having no difference in sex, sexual orientation, color of skin, or religion, and this to make harm to no one. It is a noble effort, and it should be saluted. It in fact means considering people for what they really are, human beings endowed with unalienable rights and infinite dignity. The anti-discrimination sentiment wants, in fact, to look at human beings properly as human beings, not to them as function of some of their characteristics. In one word, to appreciate the essence of human beings rather than their accidents. Unfortunately, it happens that at times this sentiment reverts into its opposite, transforming a noble attitude toward generalized justice into blatant injustice, when in fact the human nature which constitutes the true identity of the human being is not kept vivid in the mind's eye. Equality of dignity tends to become equality of condition, and justice turns into its opposite. Let us recall again the Olympic and the Paralympic Games, and all becomes immediately clear. Now, this exercise in words is where sense and Tai Ji Men meets. Tai Ji Men has suffered for 25 years and is continually suffering because it has been treated for ideological reasons both equally and unequally to others. Tai Ji Men was seriously treated equally to scoundrels, cheating the state for illegally avoiding paying just taxes, as well as it has been seriously treated unequally to others when its shifu and dizi were and are denied their unalienable right to enjoy freedom of association and religion. In sum, the Tai Ji Men has been discriminated as no people should ever be, as no society can ever tolerate, and as no government can ever allow. Our reflections today on discrimination is then particularly relevant to Tai Ji Men. In fact, our webinar today perfectly underlines that the entire Tai Ji Men case is not a case of tax evasion or mere money, as the Tai Ji Men persecutors try to substantiate, but a staggering case of violation of human rights, human dignity, and religious freedom. Since courts of law has repeatedly cleared Tai Ji Men of all false accusation moved against it, meaning that they discriminated brilliantly between falsity and truth, condemning the first and vindicating the latter, the senseless fury that hit Tai Ji Men even after these important rulings is the mark of an unacceptable, hatred-driven discrimination toward a peaceful movement that simply asks to enjoy its right to follow its own spirituality as a concrete way to practice its right to truth. Ignoring that discrimination between lies and truth, good and evil, wisely operated by so many tribunals, means to discriminate Tai Ji Men, shifu, and dizi in the aspect that it is the most sacred in women and men, their undeniable rights, their infinite dignity, and their religious freedom. If the world, celebrating the Zero Discrimination Day, really wants to end all forms of penalization, marginalization, exclusion, and segregation within the one human family, it should do whatever is in its power to bring the persecution of Tai Ji men to an immediate end, and ask the Taiwanese government to immediately play its role in this battle for civility and a better world.
Very much to Marco for his insights, for his presentation, raising some very important issues. We are now moving on with the next part of today's seminar. Today's seminar as chair of the second session, Camelia Marin. Camelia Marin is a human rights activist for many years. She's been a human rights activist for many years, and she's deputy director of Soteria International, spiritual human rights organization based in Denmark. Camelia, the floor is yours for the second part of the webinar.
Thank you, Alessandro. Thank you, everybody, for inviting me for this. And it's a special day. We can say that on Zero Discrimination Day, 1st of March, we celebrate the right to everyone to live a life with dignity, to live a life full and productive, enjoyable life. Zero Discrimination Day offers an opportunity to celebrate diversity, to say no to discrimination, and to promote tolerance. Also, this day, it is an opportunity to join together to highlight the importance of compassion, peace, and understanding between all human beings, to create the conditions to end all forms of discrimination. Before moving to the statements of Taiwan experts and scholars and Tai Ji Men dizi from all around the world, we have now a moment to enjoy together the Lunar New Year gathering and cultural performance, watching two short videos.
Hello, my friends at Tai Ji Men. I bring you greetings from Philadelphia. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there for this wonderful celebration, but please be sure my thoughts are with you during this very special event and special occasion. The Year of the Tiger, the Year of the Tiger. And I think that it's an appropriate symbol of the perseverance, the commitment, and the effort that Tai Ji Men has displayed over the past many years in fighting for justice. I am happy to have been by your side for the past 6 years or so, 7 years actually, in that effort. We will continue, but now let's celebrate the Lunar New Year. Let's celebrate the Year of the Tiger. I wish you all peace, prosperity, and happiness for the future.
Recently, I had the pleasure of visiting the Walnut Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy and to be welcomed by Pamela, Susan, Michael, and many other friends. And I was particularly impressed by the music and the dances for the Chinese New Year about the 5 treasures. And I know there are esoteric Qigong versions of the 5 treasures, but in a simple form, they are about health, wealth, wisdom, happiness, and joy. And that's my wish for the new year to shifu, shimu, and all the dizi. Health, because we come from a different from a difficult period and we all need health. Wealth, which is not only material health, but it's a wealth of riches, spiritual riches, cultural riches to be distributed to the world. Wisdom you have a lot, but you will need even more to confront the opposition and the corruption and work with us, your friends, towards a solution of the Tai Ji Men case. And happiness, I hope the Tai Ji Men case will not distract you from bringing again, and hopefully by traveling again, happiness to the world through peace and love. And joy, let's joy prevail through conscience and peace, and let the joy of the bell of world peace and love ring again. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. All the best and hope to see you very soon. Bye.
My dear friends, this is the Year of the Tiger. In 1794, a famous English poet and painter, William Blake, wrote immortal verses when he chanted, "Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night." In his poetry, the beautiful and proud tiger becomes the noble symbol of the suffering of human beings. Too many of you suffer because of blatant injustice. In this joyful day, let me wish all the best for a true, quick deliverance. Happy New Lunar Year.
Greetings. Happy New Lunar Year.
Yes. Thank you very much. And also, same. Happy New Lunar Year to everybody. And this year, I can say, not by random, in connection with the Tai Ji Men case, on this Zero Discrimination Day, United Nations, it started a new theme: remove laws that harm, create laws that empower. And this is highlighting the urgent need to take action against discriminatory laws. It is noticed that in many countries, laws result in people being treated differently, subjected to restrictions or arbitrary conditions on how they live their lives because of who they are and also because of what they are doing. Such laws deny human rights and fundamental freedoms, and states have a moral and legal obligation to remove discriminatory laws and to enact laws that protect people from discrimination. We start our second part of this webinar on the idea that Zero Discrimination Day aims to promote equality before the law and in practice. In February 2017, United Nations called on people to make some noise around zero discrimination, to speak up and prevent discrimination from standing in the way of achieving ambitions, goals, and dreams. I find this day and this event a very good opportunity to speak up about the 27 years of discrimination for Tai Ji Men community. And besides the voices of EU and US scholars that expressed their concern on this matter, we have now the chance to listen Taiwan experts and scholars and Tai Ji Men dizi from around the world. We invite now Mr. Jason Cherg, who is consultant, small and medium enterprise in Taiwan, and he's also a Tai Ji Men dizi. Please, the floor is yours. Actually, also I need to introduce that your subject is Zero Discrimination Needs Conscience, has based on butterfly effect. Please.
Thank you, Camelia. But I read the news that we have one more video to play. Would you like to make sure first?
Yes, absolutely. I was interested in presenting, so I did read all the chat. Yes, Please, let's have the second video.
Thank you.
Tai Ji Men, the old Mun Pai, values tradition, observes ancient rites, and esteems comradeship. Amid the current daily fading aura of the Lunar New Year, every year the Energy family hangs up lanterns and decorations and celebrates the New Year with noise and excitement, and has for many years held gatherings to reunite with dear friends to celebrate the New Year, bringing together an abundance of happiness to welcome the event. Over the years, figures from over 80 countries have attended, enabling friends from overseas to get to know our culture and maintain good friendships. The old Mun Pai's distinctive manner of passing culture down from one generation to the next has enabled the lifeline of culture to be maintained, enabling ancient ethics and morality to be reinterpreted in modernized language, awakening a craving in the people of today for the spirit of martial virtue. The new year is beginning. Tai Ji Men, wishing that everyone may enjoy the 5 treasures: health, wealth, wisdom, happiness, and good fortune.
And now, as we just said a bit before, let's have also the possibility to listen some more testimonies, statements regarding the case, and we invite now Mr. Jason Cheng to present us about the Zero Discrimination Needs Conscience-based butterfly effect.
Thank you, Camelia. Hello, everyone. People often ask me curiously, why have you practiced at Tai Ji Men for so long? It's been 30 years now. I have summarized the treasure that Tai Ji Men can help me grow continuously into the following 3Y, 3W, 3H, 3Y. I use these WHY to answer this why. And they are 3W, wisdom, well-being, and wealth, especially spiritual wealth. And 3H, hard wrongful, happiness, and health, including body, mind, and spirit. And 3Y, philosophy of yin and yang and younger. I believe that these treasures are also desired by the world. So being with Tai Ji Men has become a daily routine for me and my family. However, instead of cherishing the value of a cultural heritage of Tai Ji Men, the Taiwanese government has continued to discriminate and suppress it. 25 years ago, the fake case of Tai Ji Men created by prosecutor Hou Kuan-ren, using false witness and false evidence, had caused all happy Tai Ji Men deeds to be subjected to strange looks, ridicule, and accusation from their friends, relatives, and the public. The positive power of Tai Ji Men to help uplift the world has been seriously undermined and hindered. Zero Discrimination Day is symbolized by the butterfly, which represents transformation, rebirth, beauty, and freedom. Since the government is the biggest perpetrator of human rights, in order to achieve zero discrimination, the government must take a lead in administering the law with a conscience. And the people will follow the lead so that there will be fairness and justice in society, and the butterfly effect can be maximized. For example, taxation, originally a good public instrument used by the government for national prosperity and peace has been used as an evil weapon to suppress the people. And it is the worst form of discrimination for a few authoritarian bureaucrats in the taxation authority to deprive Tai Ji Men deeds of their freedom of faith and choice of cultural life for a long time. Over the years, Tai Ji Men insisted on peaceful and rational protest to remind the government. Experts and scholars like you condemn the government with the universal value of defending human rights. Although officials were listening, they obviously were not hearing. They still went their own way with no conscience, wantonly plundered the property, land, reputation, and youth of good people, causing eternal pain in the hearts of law-abiding citizens. I was a young father at the time of the Tai Ji Men incident, and I wrote a poem on the second anniversary. Now that I'm a grandfather, the Tai Ji Men injustice has not yet been resolved. All the horrors are still vivid in my mind. But I'm glad that I have been following Dr. Hong on the right path, doing good deeds and trying to be a good deeds. I would like to share this poem. Innocent and joyful, just like a flock of sprouting seeds, looking forward to becoming big trees, about to look up and see, to feel the profound mystery of Tai Chi. Suddenly, there was a thunderstorm, destroying our peaceful home. Inner perseverance was the only thing we can rely on. In a dangerous environment, we were restlessly dormant, lonely and helpless. Fortunately, we also have rare bliss. With wise guidance from the ancient warm tree, show us how to be. With reminding of diligence, elaboration, patience, and inner peace, with determination of well practicing the Qi, with affection of deep wisdom from the homeland of soul, with an aspiration like outstretched tendrils are ready to grow, and with clear understanding through listening and taking concrete actions at all. Overcoming any obstacle and trouble, trying to get head out of bricks, stone, and rubble, moving toward the sunlight, not afraid of the wind and rain to fight. Keep growing for lifelong, always standing strong. Eventually, achieve a dazzling legend of rare trees and blooming flowers which belong to ours. Carry forward the national quintessence culture by heart and to integrate civilian and martial art. Let's change this part, how the world thinks of us with traders of our hearts. Cherishing a relationship of you and me as close as bougainvillea tree. Opening both arms, unite to defend against external harm. Accept self-cultivation. Also help others for continuous transformation. Knowing that keep working hard will benefit oneself at last. Present seed in the nature will be a forest of merit in the future. Don't forget to create a kind fate together and to achieve enlightenment for all people forever. Zero discrimination is the foundation of world peace. In order to achieve the vision of zero, we must first implement one and extend it to infinite people and things. And one means starting from ourselves and treating everyone equally without discrimination. As Professor Chen Zhilong, chairman of the Taiwan Association for Financial Criminal Law Study, emphasized, If the law is biased toward the dialectic of splitting into two, it will infringe on human rights and must implement love and care and human dignity and return to ontology. This is the conscience and good governance advocated by Dr. Hong. In response to zero discrimination, I hope that I can pursue the truth and do what is right in my words and actions, while in my heart, I can follow the example of the eternal generosity and selflessness of heaven and the infinite tolerance of the earth in accepting all things. Even though I still remember every moment of suffering in my life, but my heart is at ease and not bitter. Although I have been struggling to defend justice, my heart can be happy and not tired. Over the years, Tai Ji Men has visited more than 100 countries in the world at its own expense with the culture of love, peace, and conscience, and has influenced several presidents internationally to avoid imminent wars. In Taiwan, Tai Ji Men has assisted the government in promoting public welfare activity and culture, and has been praised by present and past presidents and recognized by all walks of life. Even after more than 25 years of persecution, Tai Ji Men Shifu and Dizi have remained committed to the path of legal tax reform, bringing together the efforts of many experts and scholars to help give voice to many tax victims and promote legal tax reform, highlighting the importance of Tai Ji Men to the world and the relentless government suppression that has delayed much of the country's and Tai Ji Men's development. I will continue to follow Dr. Hong's lead in bringing the world together to work for a better world and to implement the words of that of the world, a declaration of peace engraved on the top of the bell of world peace and love. We are looking forward to returning to a harmonious world in which there is no suffering, no fear, no war, and no pain. The words of wisdom always have a different, deeper meaning. If the peaceful world of heaven is not far away, but in my own conscience, how can I ask for it outward? If the home of the soul does not lie in the future, but in abundant life in every present moment, how can I miss it now? That's it for my sharing. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for your speech. And indeed, before speaking about zero discrimination, we need to start decreasing the number and decreasing one by one until everybody decreasing, and then, yes, the butterfly effect. Thank you very much for your intervention. And now we move to our next guest, to Miss Jody Law. She is the Senior Product Management Engineer, and she will speak about enhancing mental health, moving towards zero discrimination. Judy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Camelia, and it's my honor to attend this webinar. So firstly, I would like to introduce myself. Hello, I'm Judy. I'm a senior product management engineer currently working in the electronics industry. And I have double master degree in organizational psychiatry and psychology and human-computer interaction ergonomics. Today, I would like to share about the psychological research related to discrimination and how improving mental health can lead to a zero discrimination living environment within a group. I was fortunate enough to be taught by shifu Dr. Hong Daozi in 1992 and become a disciple of Tai Ji Men when I was less than 1 year old. This is the most precious gift my parents gave me in my life. because I was able to grow up in a loving environment from a young age. Through my shifu teachings, I was able to maintain and improve the well-being of my mind, body, and spirit from a young age. He guided me to practice qi and cultivate my mind to always balance my mind, body, and spirit. He also often led me to adopt a global perspective and to do good deeds for not only Taiwan, but the whole world. At the young age of 10, when the NGO Association of World Citizens held a conference in Taiwan, I drew my wish for the world in the conference as a small world citizens. Growing up following shifu to spread love and peace, I have been wishing that the world could be a family, the world would be free from war, and all people would have love and human rights. Thanks to shifu, I grew up with a healthy body and mind despite having worries in the process of growing up. Since I was 5 years old, we were discriminated by the society because of the illegal use of non-scientific methods by prosecutor Ho Kuan-ren, who accused us of raising goblin and used the media to smear us, causing the public to think that we were a weird religious group. Since then, we would be stared at if we wore our uniform on the street. Some of our brothers and sisters even lost their job and family. I also did not dare to tell my classmates that I was part of Tai Ji Men. At that time, I was too young to understand what discrimination was, but I feel very sad to be excluded. We are all human beings. Why should I be hated when I am just doing what I like? I have been to India, Portugal, and the other countries with shifu. In addition to performing on stage, we would also go on the local street with shifu to spread love and happiness despite our differences as we sang, danced, and held hands with the local people. Through shifu teachings, I learned that when we explain the love in my heart to all people in the world, we can naturally let go of our prejudices and fears. From then on, we can face the public with courage and feel honored to be a Tai Ji Men dizi or disciple. As I studied psychology in my bachelor degree, I learned that discrimination is a psychological problem. When we develop internal anxiety and the cruel reality from facing the individual different from ourselves, they result in harmful psychological coping mechanisms that people use to resist negative emotions. In 1977, Lee Ross, a social psychology professor at Stanford University, and his colleague conducted simple experiments and introduced the false consensus effect. 104 Stanford undergraduates were asked by Ross whether they would be willing to walk around campus for 30 minutes with a "come to Joe's for dinner" sign on their bodies. The participants were asked to give explicit answers. Guess what other participants of their own age would do? And finally, comment on others' decision of willing or refusing or to hand the sign. The experiments found that in this hypothetical evaluation, the vast majority of people thought others would make the same choices as themselves. And for those who held different choices from themselves, they tend to give more extreme evaluations. express their lack of understanding, and even thought that these people were abnormal. However, psychologists know that they use this method to achieve psychological security at the cost of denying reality, which does not help the individual to face the problem and resolve anxiety. Therefore, psychoanalysis believes that helping individuals to become self-aware and develop healthier psychological coping mechanism is the only way to solve the problem of prejudice and discrimination. I now understand why Shifu told us from childhood to think positively, not to do bad things, and treat people with conscience and love, so that my body and mind can develop positively, reducing discriminatory and negative attitudes. In the same way, Taiwan government officials should not discriminate against the people because of personal psychological factor as they did in our case. Hou Kuan-ren openly said in media that he saw a shadow in Shifu's eyes and accused us of raising goblin. In response of this event, when Tian Qiujing was a legislator, she said that if a prosecutor can use expression from eyes to determine whether a person was guilty or not, this would never peace in Taiwan. This means that law enforcement officers who hold public power can violate human rights in such a way that everyone could be discriminated against and prosecuted. Even though the Supreme Court cleared Tai Ji Men name and wrote in 2007 that Tai Ji Men was not guilty, did not owe tax, and did not violate the taxation law, the tax agency still violate the law and human rights by taxing Tai Ji Men, which is also a kind of discrimination. As public servants of the people, they should exercise their public power with fairness and justice, instead of using a biased and discriminatory attitude from not admitting their mistakes and committing to violate the law with tax bills. We call on the Taiwan government to remove discrimination, re-examine the unjust taxation case of Tai Ji Men, revoke all illegal tax bills according to the court's ruling, return the people's property that was illegal auctioned, and restore the reputation of Tai Ji Men Shifu and members. Discrimination is the root cause of disrespect for human rights, and those who hold public power should be more humble and not discriminate against anyone. Therefore, as young people in Taiwan, besides fighting for justice for ourselves, we sincerely hope that our future generation can grow up in a country of love, peace, and human rights. This requires those people power to take action to create a psychologically sound society, leading Taiwan toward a future of human rights and zero discrimination. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Judy. And it was delighting for me to hear that you were taught in your childhood to think positively, not to do bad things, and to treat people with conscience and love. In this way, actually, your body and mind will develop positively. And Of course, this will absolutely reduce all the discriminatory and negative attitudes. It's a very healthy way of thinking, and indeed the Taiwan government should follow this example and stop discriminating. Once more, thank you very much, Judy, for your presentation.
Thank you, Camilla.
And now we move further to Mr. Hung Xian Lin. He is Director of Public Office in Taiwan. Mr. Lin will present us how the administrative conscience is the key for the government to respect and protect human rights. Mr. Lin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Camelia. Hi, I'm Rick. I am a public servant who have been working in the aviation industry for more than 20 years. And I've been practicing Tai Ji Men with my family for over 15 years. At the beginning, my purpose for joining Tai Ji Men was to improve my health and develop myself to be better at work. Over the years, practicing Qigong has benefited me with good physical fitness and good energy. I was able to deal with heavy workload relatively easier and therefore was promoted to the head of department smoothly. On top of that, my biggest learning is to understand that the goal of life is to make life meaningful and valuable. I have seen my shifu, Dr. Hong Dao's, traveling across the 5 continents with the dizi for many years to promote love and peace through the bell ringing ceremony, martial arts performance, music, and dance. What impressed me most is in 2005, the then president of Dominic, His Excellency Francis, was invited to ring the bell of world peace and love. After Dr. Hong told him, he was inspired and made a peace wish of, hoping that people in the world respect each other. Love and peace can live forever. Later in 2008, he took the initiative to mediate in the world crisis in Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela, his neighboring countries in Central America. The people were saved from violence and warfare. He truly fulfills his promise, which he made on ringing the bell. There's a phrase, the government is a good place for self-cultivation, which means that there are many opportunities to do good deeds in the government, leading to good karma. On the other hand, the temptation of position and the power is also huge, and the difference between harming people and helping people is often only by a blink of thought. In Tai Ji Men, my shifu told us the meaning of this sentence. By word and by conduct, is like in work, is to make life more meaningful and valuable. My shifu often reminds me that when handling public affairs, we must follow our conscience, and the implementation and the interpretation of law and the regulations should be considered based on the interests of the people, not for the sake of personal interests. However, when I joined Tai Ji Men, I realized that my shifu and fellow brothers and sisters had been bullied by public power. A case that happened in 1996 has not been rectified until now. I've learned that my brothers and sisters have suffered a lot of unfair treatment and discrimination because of this. For example, a brother who wore Tai Ji Men attire was insulted by passengers before rushing off the bus. A sister's mom who went to visit his mother was buried from entry because the prosecutor smears and stigmatized Tai Ji Men with false accusation of raising goblins. All such heartbroken stories. In addition, there were even National Taxation Bureau (NTB) officials who publicly said, "What the court said does not count." As a civil servant, it makes me wonder why some officials do not know how to abide by the law and to respect human rights. which have led more than 25 years of stigma and discrimination against us, Tai Ji Men Case. This reminds me that civil aviation industry values risk control as a highest principle for flight safety. In the analysis of a major aviation accident, there is a famous three cheese model, which is to describe that the accident happened because of coincidentally incident break through multiple loopholes in layers of protective measures at the same time. Similar that it's possible for a set of holes on the piece of cheese to be connected so that light beam can go right through. When examining flight accident, you will always find such step-by-step error. Let's draw example. If any load or link had been done correctly, the event would not happen. In other words, increasing the number of cheese layer protection and reducing the occurrence of holes will increase the chance of an accident being blocked. Most importantly, as long as one of the steps is corrected and the breakthrough event is blocked at any moment, the tragedy will not happen. Regarding the Tai Ji Men case, it's like the three cheese model, which is caused by the value of the judicial administrative relief system. A prosecutor who abuses public power violates the law and prosecutes twice, abuse their power to search and investigate Tai Ji Men. The NTB officials has not examined the facts and the evidence according to their duty before imposing taxes, and abuse their power to misinterpret the law and issued out of context executive orders. During the period of length 25 years, the government has been unable to solve the people's suffering. If you had the opportunity to review the entire process of the incident, you will see that all government agencies involved, such as the NTB Central District, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Justice, and even the Executive Yuan, could have revoked both the illegal taxation and the compulsory enforcement with their own discretion. Based on the facts and the evidence obtained from the investigation, and the unjust case could be terminated and stopped right away, but none did it. This also made me consider that all civil servants should be re-educated with the fact that according to the law, means to abide by the law and protect human rights, rather than to allow the administrative power expand indefinitely to limit the rights of the people, not ruled by men, rather than ruled by law. No matter how complete the system designed, it will not be able to achieve its purpose. A case of unjust, wrongful, and false conviction that has been created out of thin air and has been entangled in courts for more than 25 years is a story of the abandonment of duty by civil servants who has relieved their conscience and is a more serious discrimination against the people. Today is a Zero Discrimination Day, and I call on the government to do its utmost to redress the Tai Ji Men's unjust and false taxes, while respecting and protecting all human rights, especially all administration measures must ensure people able to truly live and work on this hand without any degrees of discrimination in terms of gender, race, class, religion, etc. Not only must good laws, regulations, and policies be published, but also good enforcers to follow concretely. I also promise to stop myself, hoping that every civil servant will do their job with conscience and work together to make our world a better place. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lin. And Yes, it was very beautiful how you said it, that the government is a good place for self-cultivation, which actually offers opportunities to do good deeds or to do bad deeds. And it's also the temptation of the position and power, which makes the difference between what means to harm people, to discriminate, to abusively use all kind of laws in a, let's say, biased angles or interest, or to help people. Yeah, very good. Thank you very much for your talk once more. And now we move further. Our next guest is Miss Ashley Huang. She's a university student major in special education in Taiwan. And her topic is, let's create a better education and legal tax environment. Miss Ashley, please, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ashley. I'm still a junior in college, and my major is special education and bilingual education. As for special education, the core concept and philosophy is zero rejection, barrier-free environments, and inclusive education. We hope to provide all students with appropriate educational programs and social and counseling welfare resources so that all students can receive a high quality of education. In addition to this trend of equality and respect in educational community, medical profession shares the same idea as well. So today, March 1st, is the Zero Discrimination Day, which is intended to promote respect for all human rights, remove discriminatory provisions of laws and policies, and embrace and protect symbols of human rights. I vividly remember when I was a freshman in college, I was lucky to have the opportunity to India Montessori School to participate in the Global Chief Justice Conference with Dr. Hong in order to promote love and peace, spread the seeds of conscience and love to all corners of the world. During that trip as a volunteer doing good deeds, I profoundly experienced that life is very hard for many people in the world. Merely having a decent meal is already a big issue in life for them, and not to mention a good education. And this is really food for thoughts. Although we may sometimes encounter difficulties in our lives that makes us unhappy, if we can encourage at that point, maybe the situation will turn to the bright side. Therefore, when I'm faced with such a situation during the trip to India, even though I don't have enough time to have an in-depth context or to bond with them. Also, the language barriers between local people and I, but I still try my best to pass on the positive energy and kindness to them so that they can feel the warmth between humans. At that time, I smiled at the children and people I met, and they smiled back. I think this is the best way to spread the seeds of happiness. The joy of life is such ordinary and simple. If all of us can uphold our conscience and stand in others' shoes, don't draw unnecessary boundaries between humans, causing arguments or igniting hatred, then I believe that the world will definitely be filled with love and peace, forming a virtuous cycle. Whether environments I grew up in or the education I received, I was taught to distinguish between right and wrong with conscience, to respect and tolerate all people. But as I become older, I realized that there are still people who are blinded by profits, doing things that would cause damage on others. The most shocking and disappointing thing that occurred to me was Tai Ji Men Case, which has been endured for 25 years. This case starts in the year of 1996. In 1996, prosecutor Ho Kuan-ren created a false case and abused his power to prosecute Tai Ji Men, causing shifu and dizi of Tai Ji Men to receive countless negative criticism from the community. Even though this case has been classified as a major human rights protection case by the Control Yuan, in the year 2019, the National Taxation Bureau, NTB, knew that they had a mistake. So tax bills in 1991 and 1993 to 1996 were all corrected to zero. But why is the tax bill in 1992, which has the same evidence as the other 5 years, still enforced? The truths are all in front of us. Even the NTB knows that they're wrong, but the executive yuan still illegally and forcibly levied an auction of the Tai Ji Men sacred land and took it into state's ownership. This ridiculous case has been lasted for more than 25 years. However, it still not ends. I was not born yet when the Tai Ji Men case occurred. This case predated me. As a dizi of Tai Ji Men, through forums, sharings from brothers and sisters, the teachings and guidance from shifu, or even from my own experiences, I can tell that Tai Ji Men is a wonderful place where we can cultivate ourselves and where we learn Kung Fu of happiness and even go global to promote Chinese culture. Why would such a positive organization, which has a great contribution to the world, be stigmatized and discriminated against in its own country? I wonder whether Taiwan is truly a democratic and progressive country with openness and fairness system. I think this is the reason why I'm willing to come forward to expose such injustice, because I know that there are still people upholding their justice and doing the right thing in Taiwan. It's just that some powerful officials have abused their authority to persecute the people. We should stand up and tell them those wrong things they've done. Government should listen to the voices of the people and make improvements. Officials should be administered in accordance with the law and should not illegally violate human rights and not admit their mistakes. Just as the saying goes, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree after all. If those offending officers are not sanctioned for such an indicative case, is there any respect of rule of law in this country then? Moreover, I'm entering the education field and become an educator in the near future. How can I teach my students to be law-abiding? Because of my education background, special education is centered on zero rejection, which means to using love and care for others so that all students can receive basic rights and good quality education, so that I can have a better understanding of true meaning of zero discrimination. When the government welfare policies are unfair, when the social conditions are discriminatory, and when fundamental human rights are not respected, these special children and citizens cannot be treated fairly. Today, on March 1, Zero Discrimination Day, I choose to stand up with all experts and scholars in a peaceful way. We're all committed to different missions, having a tender heart and follow our conscience to do our best for our society. I hope that those officials who have trapped by fame and fortune can be awakened and truly face the problem. Stop subjecting innocent people to discrimination and persecution, and return the fairness and justice of Tai Ji Men to shifu and dizi. Also a fair and transparent judicial system in Taiwan. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Ashley. And let's hope that you will keep your optimism and your very good direction. And impressive that actually the case started before you were born, and still in the community you grew up with a very beautiful education. You were taught to distinguish between right and wrong with conscience, and also always to respect and tolerate all people. That's very beautiful. And even though the case starting in 96 with all the, let's say, bad angles that the prosecutor who did and creating, like fabricating the case against Tai Ji Men and causing so many problems, it's like you have it in your consciousness, but it's still not affecting your respect and tolerance for all people. And now we'll move to our next guest. We have now with us from Canada a college student, Bobby Chen. Bobby is a Tai Ji Men dizi, and he will share with us about the importance of love, peace, and conscience, and also the importance to stand up and voice one opinion regarding the biased bonus system. Please, Bobby, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I am very thankful to be here with you all, dear respectful professionals and dear brothers and sisters. I am Bobby Chen, currently an animation student studying in Canada. Around middle school time, I moved back to Taiwan. At that time, I didn't understand and wasn't aware of all the underlying problems that have been ongoing around the world, until I became a Tai Ji Men dizi. My shifu taught me to care for this world, to take action, and to use our potentials and energy to positively impact our society and be a problem solver for this world. My shifu even brought me with him to UN conferences to learn and to share with everyone about the importance of love, peace, and conscience. Amid the pandemic, my shifu enlightened me to produce episodes of fun animations that taught people useful pandemic prevention techniques to keep healthy and safe, as well as to spread awareness around the world. Now back in Taiwan because of COVID, having been working and watching closely on human rights and democracy, I realized that Taiwan's government has been carrying out inhumane activities while practicing the system of fake democracy. One of the deadliest is the bonus system, which has given corrupted officials a chance to fulfill their greed for money. 25 years ago, prosecutor Ho Kwan-ren fabricated evidences and witnesses, manipulated news media into broadcasting fake news, illegally prosecuted Tai Ji Men in order to find tax and turn it into bonuses. And to make things seem legal, Ho even worked with Tax Bureau director at that time, Zhang Shenhe, to illegally change official documents' date using a whiteout. How absurd. Then illegally sold all stocks of what my shifu has owned and put that money into their own pocket. And on 2020, August 21st, the Administrative Enforcement Agency, Ministry of Justice, illegally and forcefully auctioned Tai Ji Men's land, ignoring the court's third instance judgment, which confirmed Tai Ji Men as not guilty of any kind, causing a social stigma discrimination against Tai Ji Men until this day. In a democratic country like US, South Korea, Singapore, when cases of government overtaxing citizens happen, they try to fix the problem and give back the extra money to the people. A recent example is the budget surplus in California, which is estimated at around 4.57 billion. And the legislator has said to give back each Californian around $1,000, as it is the right thing to do, to give back. Meanwhile, here in Taiwan's democracy, these corrupted officials continue to plague the citizens who pay civil servants their salaries. Taiwan's government has no system of punishing illegal acts of civil servants, causing endless suffering to so many who has no power and voice to speak out. Prosecutor Ho, who is guilty of several crimes and corruption, ironically had been promoted as deputy director of the Agency Against Corruption, and most recently, again promoted to become the director of the Institute of Forensic Medicine in Ministry of Justice. Bringing his corruption to infect students of the Institute, it is extremely alarming that because we don't want to see even one other Ho Kwan-ren roaming around stabbing people. The bonus system has especially corrupted the National Taxation Bureau. To gain bonus other than their salary, civil servants working there would purposely send official documents to companies, especially ones with high earnings, forcing them to pay extra tax and would go the length of negotiating the amount of illegal extra tax the company is willing to pay in exchange for not coming back to bother the company for a while again. This kind of disgusting behavior from our Taxation Bureau is also one of the key reasons why many international enterprises left Taiwan's market, leaving negative reviews of non-transparency in Taiwan's tax system. For businesses within the country, what are supposed to be bonuses and salary raises for company employees have all been robbed by the Taxation Bureau every year. The amount of money the Taxation Bureau has overtaxed over the years have piled up to more than $1 trillion Taiwan dollar. This is also why Taiwanese salaries have not been raised to accommodate the inflation rate over the last 20 years. People might ask, why such a significant problem has not been well addressed on news media here in Taiwan? The magnitude of the impact of these issues should be headlines on the news every day. So why is that? It is because Taiwan's news media are also controlled by the government. If there's too much negative news being broadcasted against the government, these news media run the risk of their license being detained. That is why many news media have been easily manipulated by a few high-up government officials, even to the extent of broadcasting fake news, exactly like how Prosecutor Ho has done it to smear Tai Ji Men, labeling it as a evil religious group, and also how the Administrative Enforcement Agency has done it in 2020, manipulating media and broadcasting false information about Tai Ji Men still owing tax, misleading the public. All this has caused citizens to lose their rights in truth transparency, causing many to be manipulated by dictators only to see the bright side of the government and lose awareness of all the underlying corruption that have been putting people's democratic rights at risk. And in Taiwan, many government officials have not spent the effort to listen to the voice of what the people truly need. I must strongly speak out to Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen to stop spending effort on window dressing. Have the courage to solve problems at stake, problems that have been trampling human rights, democracy, and freedoms for decades. Abolish the bonus system and any kind of system that civil servants can use for abuse of power. Let the people of Taiwan live in dignity, live in a place full of positivity, full of truth, and not under a mask of fake democracy. We all have the responsibility and ability to help our nation and the world to become better. Only with pure heart, without boundaries, can we support each other to achieve a wonderful tomorrow. And I have to thank you all who have given us strength, wisdom, and love. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Bobby. And yeah, I have just 2 points that I would like to comment on what you said. First of all, the prosecutor, how the fact that he was promoted, actually, probably he was doing the interest of those that he was working for. Thus, he deserved the promotion from the angle of obeying and just doing, let's say, as he was taught to do. Of course, is not according with the rules and laws that we are knowing and we live with them, but according with other interests, probably he did good. And also the fact that you said in Taiwan government has no system of punishing illegal acts of civil servants, which actually are causing endless suffering to so many who has no power and voice to speak out. That is an issue, and yeah, that maybe the Taiwanese government will just consider to solve it, because even though they are civil employees, still should be something, some kind of rules to make them respect the laws. Thank you very much, Bobby, for your presentation. And now we'll move further. During the event, Wake Up and Rescue Human Rights. The first video is presenting Professor Su Sung Wei. He is working in the Department of Business Administration, Fu Yen Catholic University, and he will express his concern about the incapacity of the state to solve the taxation problem.
In 2018, we made a major request for the return of the overlapping to the people.
On 19 December
the government did not respond to our voices, for we found that they have spent all of the overlapping funds and even consider it as a private funds. The overlapping money belongs to the people, and it cannot be used without the approval of the statutory budget and agreement of the people, including the subsidies paid to the counties and cities. Today, more than 3 years later, let's take a look again. More than 4 million people watched the films on the internet at first. After my verification, there was no progress at all, and it was actually going backwards. This is a very, very, very serious problem in Taiwan. There is still an authority, martial law, and white terror in Taiwan. Our system, our laws, and our entire system related to the people are only deteriorating at an alarming rate. If reforms are not carried out and the people will not continue to speak out, then we can imagine what will happen in the future. It will only get worse. Everyone must work together to solve this problem.
And now we go to the second video, also presented on 19 December 2021 during the event Wake Up and Rescue Human Rights. Mr. Ding.
The Tax Collection Act, Article 39, stated the taxpayer has to pay 1/2 of the taxable amount payable in order to file a petition, or they will enforce the tax bill. Now, the article has been reduced to 1/3 of the amount. Does the change from 1/2 to 1/3 meet the request of the majority of people?
No.
One victim under the Tax Collection Act stood here last year, Miss Lee, a tax victim of tax on luxuries. She said that she moved several times because her living environment is not good for the children. She relocated twice, and she was taxed twice. The NTB asked her to pay $8 million in luxury tax to have her case heard and avoid her property from being seized. She will have to pay $4 million. We asked her why she didn't file an administrative lawsuit. She replied, "My money has been frozen. I don't have the money to file a lawsuit." When an illegal tax bill comes from nowhere, like a piece of shit falling from the sky, we have no other choice but to take it. The taxation authorities insist that you must eat the first half of poop. Then you can argue whether or not you should eat this poop. Do you think that's reasonable?
Not reasonable.
There are many tax victims due to the inexplicable lack of human rights laws. Those victims cannot get help from 1/2 of the amount to 1/3. It's just like a change in the amount from $8 million to $2 million. Does this act do anything to help? Does this act progress taxation and human rights?
No.
Why are we standing here again? What do we want to achieve? We are here to tell everyone, those who are with us online, all people in Taiwan, and our government, that the tax disaster in Taiwan and the human rights of taxation in Taiwan is spiraling downwards. We must not ignore this situation. The Tax Reform Alliance has held many tax reform campaigns here for many years, but we have not seen any response from the NTB or the Ministry of Finance. We are disappointed. But regardless of the cold weather today, we see many people here, and many are broadcasting the event. There are so many people all over Taiwan watching the live broadcast as they care about the tax reform. We know that we are not alone. We saw a speech from an international scholar named Eileen Barker. She said, to a considerable extent, we are all Tai Ji Men, and because of Tai Ji Men's persistence, the world sees the problem in Taiwan. Standing here today, I want to tell everyone that whether you are a disciple of Tai Ji Men or not, whether you are a tax victim or not, we are here today. We have become stronger after 25 years of fighting for the Tai Ji Men tax case. We will not give up until the case is redressed.
With this very optimistic attitude, we will not give up. It's very good to point out that once more, the Zero Discrimination Day, actually we celebrate the right of everyone to live a life with dignity, to have the chance for a life full of productive things and also enjoyable life. And now we'll move to the conclusions. And for this, we invite Mr. Willy Fautré from Human Rights Without Frontiers, the director and co-founder of Human Rights Without Frontiers from Belgium, to present his conclusions for this event.
Thank you, Camelia, for passing me the baton on this very important day. And in my conclusion, I will first focus on a number of contributions by the panelists first, the speakers, and then also some disease. On Zero Discrimination Day, so today, the 1st of March, we celebrate the right of everyone to live a full and productive life and live it with dignity, which means without any sort of discrimination. Zero Discrimination Day highlights how people can become informed about and promote inclusion, compassion, peace, and above all, a movement for change. Zero Discrimination Day is helping to create a global movement of solidarity to end all forms of discrimination based on race, religion, gender, age, or on any other criterion. On this Zero Discrimination Day, various speakers have highlighted the urgent need to take action to end any form of unequal treatment that continues to persist around the world. They have focused, our speakers, on the Tai Ji Men case, which has been dragging for 25 years without any solution. Massimo Introvigne shared with us a conceptual model known as the Rome model, assessing the level of intolerance and discrimination that he elaborated a dozen years ago for the OSCE. This is a three-stage model in which discrimination, intolerance, and persecution are closely interconnected. If discrimination fails to suppress a group or organization regarded as dangerous, governments may feel entitled to act more decisively, put people in jail, and take other radical measures, Mr. Massimo Introvigne said. The spiral of intolerance, from intolerance to discrimination, and from discrimination to persecution, applies to many groups. Tai Ji Men has experienced such a spiral, leading to radical measures. It was first stigmatized and depicted as a sinister group defrauding its members and endangering society. One of the tools Prosecutor Hu used for his campaign against Tai Ji Men was to rely on an association of so-called victims of Tai Ji Men, but it later proved to be a fraud. The latest stage of radical measures against Tai Ji Men was the auctioning of its property. Marco Respinti stressed that modern democracies wish to distinguish themselves from tyrannical societies by showing that the equal treatment they reserve to all people, making no difference in sex, sexual orientation, color of skin, or religion, in order to make harm to no one. The anti-discrimination sentiment wants, in fact, to look at human beings properly as human beings, their true identity, not as function of some of their characteristics. In Taiwan, the National Tax Bureau is a discriminatory state body which treats unequally others. The Tai Ji Men case is not a case of tax evasion or mere money, as the Tai Ji Men persecutors try to substantiate, but a staggering case of violation of human rights, human dignity, and religious freedom. Taiwan should celebrate the Zero Discrimination Day by ending all forms of penalization, marginalization, exclusion, and segregation within the one human family, and more specifically, by bringing the persecution of Tai Ji Men to an immediate end, and ask the Taiwanese government to immediately play its role in this battle for civility and a better world. This was the message of Marco Respinti. Pierluigi Zoccatelli stressed that courts of law, both domestic and international, such as the European Court of Human Rights, have solidified the principle that religious and spiritual communities have the right to self-organize themselves as they deem fit. This principle is important for the Tai Ji Men case. Indeed, it means that it is free to self-organize itself as it deems fit. Concretely, that gifts given by disciples, so the dizi, to their master, the shifu, in red envelopes is part of their spiritual practice that the authorities should not interfere with. They should not interfere in general on how Tai Ji Men organizes the relationships between dizi and shifu. Conversely, the government is not authorized to discriminate against Tai Ji Men by treating its leader and members differently and with more hostility than it does with other religious or spiritual organizations. And Pierluigi Zoccatelli concluded that the Taiwanese authorities should respect the rights of Tai Ji Men, Dr. Hong, and the dizi not to be discriminated against. Carolina Hess commended Tai Ji Men for having its own television program and organizing conferences in sport events in Taiwan and even at the Sydney Olympics in 2000. She pointed at the artistic level and high aesthetic value of those performances. Such visibility of a spiritual group is usually a sign of respect for diversity, social acceptance, social inclusion, she said. However, when she decided to delve into this topic a bit more, she discovered that in Taiwan, not all problems of human rights have been resolved, including the right to freedom of conscience and to freely practice a religion or spirituality, which is an important foundation of modern societies. Indeed, 25 years after being discriminated against and arbitrarily deprived of their property by the National Tax Bureau, their problem remains unsolved. Also, some diseases, and I will not name them all or quote them all, but just a few, have highly contributed to the webinar today. Jason Yang, for example, he said romantically, I would say, that Zero Discrimination Day is symbolized by a butterfly, which represents transformation, rebirth, beauty, and freedom. Since the Taiwanese government blatantly violated the human rights of the Tai Ji Men community, there is a long way to go if it wants to achieve zero discrimination, he said, adding that zero discrimination is the foundation of world peace. Another dizi, Judy Liu. Judy, a senior product management engineer, currently working in the electronics industry, who has a master's degree in organization, psychology, and human factors engineering, thanked her shifu, Dr. Hong, for learning how to maintain and improve the well-being of her mind, body, and spirit from a young age on. Hung Lin, another dizi, a public office director, joined Tai Ji Men. When he joined Tai Ji Men, he realized that his shifu and fellow brothers and sisters had been bullied by public powers because of the National Taxation Bureau. He shared with us the case of a brother wearing Tai Ji Men attire who was insulted by passengers before rushing off the bus, and also several other heartbroken stories. And the last contribution of a disease that I will mention is the one of Ashley Huang, a university student in Taiwan. She was not born yet when the Tai Ji Men case occurred. And since then, it has been part of her life. As a dizi of Tai Ji Men, she learned from the teachings of her shifu, participated in forums and other events. She appreciated Tai Ji Men very much because of her. It is a wonderful place where she can cultivate herself, practice Kung Fu, and promote Chinese culture. And I will finish my conclusions with a quote from Ashley, her last sentence. And it's also my sentence, I would say, and my feeling. She wonders why such a constructive organization with such a great contribution to the world is stigmatized and discriminated against by a democratic and progressive country like Taiwan. Why? This is also my question and my conclusion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, everyone. Should any member of the panel have any remarks to make a conclusion? Maybe Massimo is smiling and wants to add something, or if not. Okay. Apparently the video is still ongoing. There was a technical issue. Yeah, we watched the video and we then conclude. Thank you very much, everyone.
光耀大地，赐福平安。天官赐福喽，颂颂口口报佳音，春满乾坤福满门，加官进禄日高升，行善积德真富贵。松鹤延年天福。 家展现了门派的精神。